What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter. Happy Sunday, doing a little bonus blood in the midst of Horror Fest 2024 with my man, Missing Link, to talk
Hey,
about our top
sorry.
10 horror movies of the 2000s. Am I cutting out already? I'm seeing my internets. Was I scratchy there?
No. You came clear, nice and
Okay, all
clear.
right. All right. What's going on, brother? How we doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. I'm excited to get into this list. As I was telling you backstage, it was gonna difficult narrowing these down. I thought it was gonna be a little bit harder. I was like, man, the 2000s. I couldn't like when I think of the 2000s, good horror
Mm-hmm.
doesn't immediately come to mind. But it was tough putting this list together because there was more than 10 movies I honestly love from the 2000s.
Right.
So, but it was fun, definitely
Well,
fun.
okay, me and Fable a couple weeks ago, we did our top 10 of the 80s. And for me, that's like, there's way more nostalgia wrapped up in this. And I was thinking about it like at the year 2000, I'm 17 years old. These are my party years. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So there's a
yeah.
different kind of nostalgia. There's a lot of like hanging out, drinking beers and watching these movies and,
Yeah.
and shit like that. There's a very broy era. And then the other thing, just in horror in general, is obviously it's like a reactionary period,
Mhm.
reactionary to the 90s and like kind of the softness to what we got in the 90s with all the visceral stuff that we get. And then like a reaction to 9/11 again with all like the more violent, more brutal movies from the 2000s. And then look, we've said a bunch of times, we talked a lot about it on the remakes episode that we did, is just like the realism. Everything, it's one of the reasons why, like, even though I don't know, like the remakes aren't that great, I could kind of see why they all make sense to make, because there's like a totally different way to make movies in this era, this more
Yep.
grounded, you know, tackle at or attempt at making all these remaking the classics.
That was like I guess like a early 2000s trend was to whether it be superhero movies or horror
Mhm.
movies, it was like a more grounded, like how realistic can we portray this in the the real world.
Freaking
Or
out, looking for my tea. Where the there it is. I was like, I just went and got this peach tea. I was excited about drinking.
ooh,
Sorry. Yeah,
nice.
where do you think that started? We've talked about it before. Like Christopher Nolan's a part of that. There's like I think Saw with James Wan is a big thing that gave us like that shaky cam and the more brutal stuff that Rob Zombie and Eli Roth followed up with. But where do you think
Yeah.
the grounded stuff from the 2000s really stems from?
Hmm. And this is a different genre, but I almost want to say like one of the catalysts was the first X-Men movie because
Mm,
it took a hard sci-fi approach to like they weren't really superheroes. I don't know, the black leather so they could
right.
blend it, or that doesn't really make sense now,
Well,
but
there's an attempt to make believable these super fantastical ideas, and
yes,
yeah, that's a great one right there. That and then I guess you're right. Followed up by Christopher Nolan with
yeah,
the
but
Batman
again,
trilogy that kind of did it more like earnestly and even
yeah.
less comic booky in a way, but even still comic booky at times.
But at the time it was like a super realistic portrayal as to like in the real world, this is how someone like Batman would operate.
Right.
This would have to operate, and that was a very, but even like with horror, like towards the end of the 2000s, 2009 in particular, with Friday the 13th,
Hmm.
like a survivalist dude. He's like he's not necessarily a monster. They don't ever allude to him being a monster.
Hmm.
He's just like this dude who's been in the woods living on his own this whole time. And they gave him like a cool little like a modern take, a modern edge.
Totally. What's funny, man, just to touch on that, we had just done that fantastic episode on Friday the 13th. I recommend everyone check out. But like I've been in Jason mode, you've been in Jason mode. And even like after kind of going through the movies again, I understand more why people don't like the 2009 one. I mean, I get it too, why I do like it and why you like it. But like the Jason, it's just not the same Jason.
Hmm.
It's not
It
what that
doesn't
Jason that you're coming to the theater for in the 80s and for sure.
like I am watching like because I had watched 13th, and I had watched Jason X Friday, Freddy vs Jason and Friday 13th like back to
Hmm.
back. And then like the Jason and Jason X Freddy vs Jason, he's like he's And he's not that's not Jason all the time, but he's very slow. You know, he's just a behemoth. Like he's gonna get his though. You know, nothing's gonna stop him. In the newer one, like he's running after his prey, bro. He's like
Right.
super fast, but he's more reactive. Where the other Jason just kind of takes what's coming at him. It was, it didn't really dawn on me that until the remake, like Freddy vs. Jason was the last cinema Jason we had. Last time we had seen Jason on screen.
Right.
So like there was a big contrast there, to the
Right.
Jason established to the modern take they had done. But you know what? That's one. It's crazy because we'll get into it. But I
Mhm.
used to really love the Texas Chainsaw remake, 2003. I still enjoy it, but I've seen and enjoyed quite a few others since then. And I
Mhm.
didn't necessarily. I wasn't too keen on the Friday the 13th remake when I first saw it.
Mhm.
And then it's grown on me, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that more than the Texas Chainsaw now.
I
So
think I would say the same thing, like the same exact thing. Like I loved the 2003 Texas Chainsaw when it came out. Like I've
yes,
said before, no matter what, like the way that it's aged, like it was the Texas Chainsaw we needed at the moment. But the only thing that I don't like about it is the third act. It just kind of falls apart. And the things I do like about it, they could have happened in any movie. The bit with the girl killing herself in the van, the stuff with the cop, that doesn't even have to be a Texas
yeah,
Chainsaw movie to be cool. But whatever. I mean, I still really I loved that shit when it came out. But
same here, same.
where do you think before we get into our list, like where does it stack up? You don't got to necessarily rank them all, or feel free if you want. Like, where do you think it does stack up compared to the other like decades? I'd say it's at least like fourth, as far as like since like 1960s and 70s. I'd definitely put the 80s and the 2010s and 70s before it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that's I it's yeah, that's fair because it's 70s, 80s are classic. The 90s was the dead period, certainly better than the 90s, but the 2010s definitely give it a run for its money. I'm trying to like what's really come out in the last well, we've had some good horror movies
I
the
was thinking
last
that too. Like these last 4 years, I mean, there's a lot of shit just because I think we have our ears a little closer to the ground these last couple
true.
years.
True.
But I don't know how many like great all-time greats there are that are coming to my mind immediately. In the 2010s, there's a lot. There's a lot of
Yeah.
divisive ones. People either
Yep.
love or hate Hereditary and Midsummer or Get Out or Us. Us might have been in the 2020s,
I
but
think that was 2019. Yeah.
okay. Okay. I think if and I'm gonna sit down with Stu in a few weeks and we're gonna do our top 10 of the 2010s. That one, dude, I think it's comparable with the 70s and the 80s in
There's
certain
a lot of
ways.
yeah.
Like it's different, but like there's some it's more like filmmaker focused and less about the character, like the big horror icons and stuff, which the 2000s is interesting. Like there's not many. We can kind of point them out as we go through our list. I guess there are plenty of horror icons,
Right.
but they're less focused on that. Like the movies aren't centric or as
So,
focused on needing them.
no, I agree. I agree. You get a lot of like cast time. Just Jason's fresh in my mind, but in Freddy versus Jason
Hmm.
and the remake, you spend a lot of time with the cast of the characters. Like I think Jason and Freddy are on screen in the movie quite a bit, but I don't know. They're not like you said the focus.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let us, my friends, go ahead and dive into it, my brother. Will you kick it off for us? Number 10. And then just to clarify, get into it, or two things I want to clarify. First of all, these are our favorites. If I were to make a best, like the list would be different. It would be pretty
Yeah.
similar, but there would maybe be some things I would put out of order. There's more like nostalgia, like stuff in here. And then the other thing for me is one thing I was kind of surprised by when I looked at like the movies that came out in this era is how many I hadn't seen, first of all, and then how many that of the great ones I really hadn't seen until the past like 5 years. Like even stuff like 28 Days Later, I don't remember seeing that back in the day. So I was like,
Really?
my movie watching at that time was like sporadic. And I
Okay.
think I was old enough to at that point to be of the mind that like horror ain't what it used to be. You know what I mean? I'm getting sick of these fucking Scream knockoffs. I was only 17 or 18, but I did kind of think that like horror's dead,
Yeah.
like in
It
certain
was
regards.
enjoyable.
But some of these I loved. Obviously, some of them were like my favorite movies of the era too. But it's just kind of interesting how many I hadn't seen, which I have a whole list of like recommendations of movies that I haven't seen that we'll get to when we get into our top 3, if that makes any sense at all. But trust me, I've heard from respectable people that these need to be watched. But all right, what do you have at number 10, dude?
Were we saving the honorables?
Yeah, let's do our honorable mentions right before our number ones.
Okay. Number 10 is one we've just been recently talking about, actually. And my first couple are like remakes, but we're gonna go with Friday the 13th. This is one like I said, when I first saw it, when it first came out, I was it was like I was a little edgy, and I wasn't. In the last couple of years, I've become an aficionado of horror, but at the time, I was like, I don't really get horror. I've always followed these tropes, and it's like stupid people doing stupid shit that leads to their death. But I appreciate horror now. But at the time, I wasn't too keen on it. Last couple watches I've seen in the last few years, I was like, okay, it's fun,
Right.
But when I watched it in the last week after a great Friday the 13th conversation last week, I was like, yo, this is really like, especially compared to like slashers and remakes in the 2000s. Like, this is an honest, like, it's an earnest remake. It's like they don't try to stray away from. It's not gimmicky. Jason X, I can see why people have a problem with that one. It's very gimmicky,
Right.
But this one, it was a solid remake and a cool portrayal of Jason. And you had a lot of not too many remakes coming out at the time, but it was, with Michael Bay attached to it, this could have been something else. So I was surprised that it's such and the cast of characters. I don't know, the first like 20 minutes of that movie, or maybe it's even less. Like I really have a fun. It sets the movie such a great way.
Trent is the best douchebag. I've said it before in the history of douchebag characters, because he's not only like you want him to die, like when he dies at the end, you're like, fuck yeah. But he's the funniest part of the whole movie too. Your tits are stupendous. These tits could win a titty competition, and just everything throughout. Like he's really, really funny.
And you know what? He probably had one of the best deaths, just because it was like, oh, you almost got away. Almost got away, but nope.
Well, it's the other thing about that movie, which didn't make my list. It would be like one of my top honorable mentions. Is like people complain about, wow, they like squeezed the first 4 Friday the 13th movies into the one movie. It's because there's only enough plot points in the first 4 movies to make one movie. You know what I mean? They just take the one thing that happens in the first, second, third, and fourth movie, and they put it into one. But I think it's awesome, especially like you get like a short, a 15-minute Friday the 13th short at the beginning, and then a tiny little whole Friday the 13th movie after that, all in an hour. That's like
I think my voice thing popped up. I didn't even say it. But I think that's like some of the brilliance of it is because, I don't think everyone in today's audience would be able to appreciate the original Friday the 13th, so they summed it up very nicely, which was, the gist was a mom who was upset, some camp counselors for her son dying.
Right.
If we were to try to remake that, I don't know if it, especially back then, I don't know if that would have really resonated with audience.
Especially because it's like based on being a mystery, and how are you going to do a mystery when everyone knows the answer to the mystery? You'd have to put Jason. It's like the only way to really do it, other than making it like a A24 completely like character focused kind of thing where Jason's just in the background even more so than he is. That's one of my biggest things. I wish there was more Jason in that movie, and even more kills, because I just watched it too. I just watched it a couple nights ago. But all right, hell yeah.
It's a little tame, but it was still good. I agree with you though. Like I could have used a few more kills. Because I was thinking of like the boat scene, and I was like, that was cool. It was a cool setup, but I wanted to see more brutality.
Right. It's one of my favorite parts with the girl and the. It's iconic. All right, so. Like we were talking, literally while I was doing the intro, I took one out and I switched it. I actually put it in my number 9, but my number 10 is one that I don't think you have seen. I think most people haven't seen it, which is one of the reasons why I said, fuck, I'm going to put it at 10, is Pontypool. Pontypool it's a Canadian zombie movie. And basically think like every zombie movie that you've ever seen. At one point, like you're hearing the radio, people are on the radio and they're telling you about these flesh-eating creatures out there. This is entirely takes place in the radio studio. It's just got these guys and they're hearing reports, and it's just like they're painting this image in your head of this zombie attack going on, but you see very little. Like we just talked about a dark
Interesting.
song, and people were saying, Fable and Two Gun Pedro said it. A dark song gave them horror blue balls. I think they would think this would give them horror blue balls too, but it's just like theater of the mind shit. And the guy, like the main guy, that's like the radio announcer that's talking to the people about the attack, is magnetic. He's just amazing. He's got this voice that just sucks you in. It's funny and it's brilliant. It's heady and it goes over my head at points where I don't fully understand it, which is part of what I like about it. And I've only seen it once, but it's like when I'm going through the list, I'm like fucking Pontypool. Like I love it. It's just such a cool, like different movie.
Pontypool. I mean, I can appreciate, like, I like when movies kind of, don't get me wrong, don't tease me too much, but I like when they, like, you know, there's this 28 Days Later when he's when they first rescue Cillian Murphy's character, and the dude that Selena's with, I can't remember his name, but he's like giving you an explanation or a scenario, a story when the outbreak first happened. It's like, I think like that him telling it, you know, instead of you getting like a flashback visual, it makes it even more hyped up, because it's like you're able to put yourself like, man, what would I do if I was in that situation?
Right.
In the midst.
It's like the show don't tell, like it's telling and not showing, but if you tell the right way, if you say if it's entertaining the way you're saying it and you paint the right picture, it's just as cool, if not cooler, in a lot of ways.
Well said.
All right, hell yeah, my brother. What do you have then at number 9? I had Pontypool from 2008, and it is on Shudder. I'm pretty sure, at least it was last time I checked. Highly recommend it. If it sounds like something you wouldn't want to watch, then don't watch it. You wouldn't like it. But if it sounds like you, then it's definitely I would recommend it.
I feel like I feel like I've heard that setup before about
I've mentioned it to you guys before.
Okay. My number 9 is another remake. This is one of my favorite remakes, but I'm gonna go with 2004 Zack Snyder, James Gunn's Dawn of the Dead. You know, just it drags a little bit in the second half of the movie, second act, but I think it was like the first time not the first time, Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later, it was the first time we got running zombies, but he debates those aren't zombies, those are infected. It's a zombie movie though.
He's wrong,
but Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead was the first time we got crazy amped up, and there's nostalgia. That's like a bro movie for me. I remember watching that with my boys, and we thought it was super dope, and I love the opening of that movie still.
I love the end of the movie.
Yes, super dope. Like I said, it drags a little bit in the middle, but there are some cool like character moments, or like the rapport of the cast. The dad from Modern Family. You know what I'm talking about? He's with the dark hair. He's like an asshole,
right?
But he had a cool little. He was funny. He had some really hilarious bits, and I'm a fan of zombies, and this and 28 Days Later were significant in my teenage years of horror.
Dude, even like I've known. What are you? You're like 5 years younger than me, right? I'm 40.
Yeah, 36. Yeah.
Okay, so like it makes all the sense in the world. I was thinking like of what age you were. Like, and I feel like these are a little bit more of like even your formative years. Because how old were you in the year 2000 then? You were. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, like I've always known that you love zombies, and then making this list, it's like, well, duh, of course he loved zombies. This was like the resurgence of zombies. There were no zombie movies in the 90s. There's Brain Dead, Dead Alive at the beginning of the 90s. There's the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead remake, and nothing.
What was the one with the chick she's like a half a zombie chick, and she's like putting glass in her fingers. She was like, I think that might have been like Night of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead Part 3. Yeah. Was that in the 90s? Okay, yeah. And that's when I hadn't even seen that till recently. But yeah, there was a major boom. That and The Walking Dead, of course. Dawn of the Dead remake, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later. Like it's the Pontypool. Not a lot of people know, but yeah, this was like the era of zombie cinema that went on for a while until it like burned people out through the 2010s. But all right, man, hell yeah! I have that one on my list a little bit further
Nice.
up. So, and we'll dive into another remake. This is the one that I switched out. Like I say this with, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud it's on my list, Link, but it's on my fuck. It's Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. This is on there
Respect.
because it's a favorite, and it's a favorite partially because of how much I love John Carpenter's Halloween. And it's the only thing we got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a remake from that era. And at the time, like I really did love it. I had my issues with it, and I really kind of disliked the last like 15 minutes of the movie, and the second half is way worse. This is debatable. I don't like the part where they just kind of really do remake Halloween. It's like, whatever. It's fine. It's cool. It's got its moments. But I've always loved the opening bit with young Michael and honestly, even
Getting,
Sherry Moon. Sherry Moon's best stuff is in that
yeah.
movie. Like I believe her, and like there's all the drama that they go through is good. And I've watched it so many times. I'm like, fuck it. I had to put it on the list. So
Respectable. No,
Halloween remake,
deserve.
baby.
I like that. I like that. I once again like I feel like that's a movie in hindsight that started to get more shit over the last couple years. But I remember at the
Mm,
time, like it was kind of like a fresh, like oh shit, like here comes Rob Zombie with this fresh take on a character like Michael Myers. Because I think people that don't enjoy this movie forget that we had Halloween Resurrection a few years earlier, where Busta Rhymes.
right. Right. Exactly.
It. So you got this was a cool take where it was cool to see Michael Myers be a savage. And actually, I mean, for me personally, I hadn't seen a lot of the original Halloween movies beyond like the first one and like
Hmm.
H2O. So it was cool to see like the mentality of Michael and what kind of like led him to be like this. Because I don't know if they
Right.
covered a franchise before. A little bit less like the
Right. And
90s.
that's the exact thing that people that don't like it will be like, well, you don't have to explain it away. But like I've said before, this is like an otherworld tale. It's
Yes.
like, we have that version, now we have this version. He's not as scary. It's not as scary as a movie, but it's an interesting movie. I still think like it's got a lot of like even like him in jail. I really like that look too. There's a lot of just dope ass iconography from the movie that is original to that movie. Like the way he looks in jail with his masks and the kid version of it and that mask and everything. It's
I like
I don't
how
know.
when they first kind of it might be the 2018 one I'm thinking of, but I feel like it was the 2007 one where he was like when we first meet him and he's just got like he's like hulked over and he's got like his
Hmm.
hair hanging
Yeah.
down in front of his face, like great shots.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that shit. So all right, that is my number 9, Halloween 2007. What is your number 8 missing link?
My number 8 is a movie from my formative years again, but this is a movie I didn't start appreciating until later. But this is Cabin Fever.
Oh,
Um,
nice, dude.
I had seen it before, but it didn't really like stick with me. But it's like the last cover we did of this, it like really resonated with me, and I was like, man, this
Same.
is I feel like Hostel gets a lot of like. I feel like this is the better film over Hostel. I like Hostel,
Mm, mm.
previously I probably would have said Hostel was better, but I don't know. It's like the paranoia in this movie where you don't know, you can't fucking trust anything, and it's just there's some funny bits like the Karate Kid with the mullet and shit like that.
Yeah.
This
Which I
is a fun movie.
I meant to put him in the intro and actually forgot. You just reminded me. I had him clipped out and everything. That's one that like it's funny. My journey with that movie has been like I remember loving it when it came out. Like it's a total broy movie to sit around and drink beers with your buddies with. It fit the bill for what I was doing in 2003. But then I hated it. Then I watched it some years later. I'm like, this is dog shit. And then I watched it again for DHS. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember. Like I get it again because it is stupid. It's like, and it's disgusting, and it's overly broy. It's got the
Yes.
annoying. There's no likable character in the entire movie, which I still don't love about it. But it is like it's hilarious if you're tuned into that like the type of comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Reminds me of and not directly, but how like all they're all pieces of shit, essentially looking out for themselves. Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like they're
Yeah.
they're always, they'll be quick to throw each other under the bus. And that's what they did in Cabin Fever. Like there was like, but I guess it's survival of the fittest. Shit.
My man. Sal says, I always think of Cabin Fever when I think 2000s horror.
Yes,
I've got one usually, well, I don't even want to say what it is, but there's a couple that I always think of that didn't even go on my list, but I think of them immediately, but they're still in my top 10.
Curious.
Yeah,
Are they
yeah. I was about to say it, but I'm like, fuck it. I'll just hang on to it. So, all right. That was your number 8. Cabin Fever at number 8. Hold on. If I don't write these down, I will fuck this up. So, all right. My number 7, or no. Yeah. My number 8, I'm sorry, is a movie that you introduced me to, actually, my brother. And I had to put it on the list. And it's the first one that I actually own. No, I guess I own Rob Zombie's 2007, but I didn't know it was going to be on my list. I don't have it. The Descent, baby. I put it on there when I'm looking at all the other ones. Part of what, like, the way I made my list is just thinking, like, what would I want to rewatch more than other movies? And this is just like, fuck yeah, I'd throw this on anytime. It's one of my favorite monster movies.
Yeah.
There's not that many monster movies that I really, really like. And maybe it's part of it. We had a great conversation last year during Horror Fest. Go check it out. But it's a banger, man, all the way through the monster design, the look of the movie, and then like just the claustrophobia of being underground, the setting in general. Like there's nothing else really like it that I've seen. I hear people talk about As Above, So Below as being something that's like that, where they're down in some caves. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's like they find a gateway to hell.
Okay.
Like those catacombs in Paris where they're like made
Mm-hmm.
out of bone and shit. They're supposed to be over there, down in that. It was it's worth checking out. I remember really wanting. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember not. I was like, because they're trying to do like the found footage thing at the same time.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, well, that's something else we didn't mention about this era. This is really the kickoff of found footage. We had Blair Witch in 1999, so this is really where it started. And there's not as much of it as I thought that there would be. Like we talked about when we did Paranormal Activity, it wasn't until we got that we really had the found footage boom.
Yeah, there was a there was a Quarantine. I think it was called. I think it's called like Wreck.
Yeah, 2007. Yeah, that was in my honorable, or not my honorable mentions. My mentions of movies that I haven't seen to recommend to people is Wreck.
I've seen the American remake Quarantine and the first 2 of Wreck.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's like a more demonic spin on the foreign ones or the OG ones. But I think I've seen the second one for the Quarantine. I don't think they call it Quarantine 2. I think they did, but it was shit. It was shit. They were like at an airport or some shit.
Sal says it was waiting for the Descent to pop up. It's waiting for Final Destination to see if it's gonna make it. Sit tight, buddy. Just sit tight. All right. So that was my number 8. What do you have from number 7, my brother? That was Descent, by the way, just to remind. That's what I said.
My number 7. I'm feeling like I might change it. I almost didn't put it on here, but I feel like it covers enough ground and it's not in your face. But I went with Signs. M. Night Shyamalan.
I didn't even think, dude, there was a lot of movies, even like when I got this background right here, like just right before we got rolling, like there was a lot of movies that I didn't even like come across on lists. Like that Sign, I didn't even fucking see it. Like Triangle was one. Just when I put this together, I'm like, because sometimes it's hard, like look up the top 100 movies of all time. It might not, my favorite might not even be in the top 100 sometimes. Like, if it's really, especially like on a Rotten Tomatoes list. But damn, I didn't even think of Signs. But anyway, sorry.
No. It was I was like, yeah, but it's a science fiction. But I was like, there's a lot of creepy moments in that movie, and that all horror has to be like brutality, and dismemberment and blood.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially in the 2000s, I think this was a cool one. And M. Night Shyamalan was great for his ideas back then because it was like, damn, why hadn't I thought of that? Like, he made great movies on such a modest budget. Like, really, when you think of like he does like there's really nothing too crazy in Signs, but there's
Mm-hmm.
some looks wise, like when you see the aliens, it's very sparse, and
Mm-hmm.
he hides them a lot. There's a lot of suspense and sounds and shit like that really build up the tension in the movie. But
Mm-hmm.
some like I remember the scene where you see like Joaquin Phoenix is watching the news footage and you finally see the alien walk across. I'm like, oh shit, bro! Like it was
Right.
just brief, but there's like a lot of cool jump scare moment. Sometimes jump scares can be cheap, but in this movie they're very earned. And yeah, it was a cool science fiction alien movie. So yeah, Signs. In a
I
nutshell.
would say, as far as like movies that I was into at the time when it came out, Signs was fucking huge. Like we watched that a trillion times. Like Mel
Fuck yeah,
Gibson at the time was like one of the coolest people on the planet.
yeah,
This is
yo,
pre his downfall. So it was
this
like,
was like the
damn
last
it.
thing it did before
Right.
that.
Right, exactly. All right, hell yeah, dude. That's one that I hadn't even thought about. So that's badass. All right, Signs you had at number 7. And then I have, this is another one. Well, I guess I remember liking it at the time quite a bit. And then when we covered, I was like, oh yeah, this is badass. Hostel 2, I went with. I could have put Hostel 1 or 2.
I
But then
respect that.
again, thinking back to like what would I rather watch? It would be Hostel 2. Like if you forced me to sit down and watch one of them right now, it's because it's funnier. It's
Yeah,
more fun. And as I look at my list in general, it's like it's a fun list in an era that's like known for brutality and gore and torture and all that. Like I kind of went with the more fun stuff, not necessarily intentionally, but
no, I
yeah,
appreciate that. I can dig that. Um, I was gonna say I feel like they had the better cast because I remember
yeah.
like Jay Hernandez is kind of a douche in Hostel One. I don't remember picking up on that on my. Maybe it's because I was kind of a douche around that time. But I was like, I relate to that guy. But no, yeah. Looking back on, he was like an asshat, and he's lucky he survived that experience. But the girls were way more likable.
Yeah. Oh, but
Verno.
yeah, I mean those, but the villains, the two bad guys, they're so entertaining and they're really funny. Like I don't know, they're that cast. You're right. It's a lot about the cast and just how much funnier it is. It's got a yeah, and again, people they're not as gory. They're not as like focused on the gore as people think. They've got their
Right.
moments. Love Jeff Goldblum horror film Mr. Frost. I never
Get it?
heard of it.
Yeah,
Never heard of it. What up, Garcia? Thanks for being here, brother. I like Pierce Brosnan horror film No Bads. This
I have to check
motherfucker.
that out.
Yeah, I've never heard of either one, man. But yeah, appreciate you being here, man. So Hostel 2, baby. It's one that I got it too. But yeah, these next couple that
Worth
I
it.
have just these double feature little packets of.
Nice.
But it's a great one. It's super entertaining. And it's one when I think 2000s, that's kind of like where my mind goes immediately is like Hostel, Rob Zombie, and James Wan.
Oh
But
yeah.
all right, man, what you have at numero 6?
Numero 6. Speaking of, and we were just speaking of found footage. And this is
Mm.
kind of piggybacking off of like sci-fi, but it's one I've always appreciated. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I would say Cloverfield.
I knew where you
Yo,
were going with it.
we don't have. It was cool that J.J. Abrams tried to give us like our own monster, kaiju movie as the Americans or just some different. Obviously it's very influenced by Godzilla, but
Hmm.
spin on it with the found footage I thought was really unique at the time, especially in like 2008. Um, Cast works for the most part, like them filming it makes sense, like it's not too questionable, which that I think is a question in a lot of found footage movies, like, bro, put down the fucking camera and run for
Isn't
your
he
life.
like? Doesn't he like? We got to document this. This is kind of
Yeah,
his idea. Like this is historic. We got to document this, dude. You know
yeah.
what? I always forget that, and I just heard someone mention this. I was watching a kaiju documentary on Shutter or an episode of this thing. Anyway, Matt Reeves fucking directed that movie. Don't you
Yes.
always think that J.J. Abrams did? Like I never. I'm always like, oh, that's J.J.
Yeah,
Abrams.
that. Yeah, they kept. Yeah, I remember. That J.J. Abrams' name was like this was before Matt Reeves was anybody, but
Hmm.
that was like a big billing from it. I don't know if the movie might have been as successful or anticipated had they not used J.J. Abrams' name at the time.
Yeah, totally, man.
The trailer, bro. They talk about advertising. Like I still remember it to this day. It might have been Transformers 1 that I was seeing at the time, but this movie, this shit comes on, people are at a party. I thought it was like a Pepsi commercial or something like that at first. And then all of a sudden, like an explosion happens, you hear like a scream, people go outside and you see like the Statue of Liberty's head come
Yep.
like at them. I was like, what the, and it didn't give you a name at the time, it just said the date. That you didn't find out the name for a while, and I was like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like,
Well, that's like we're talking about like this era being a response in part to 9/11. Like this is the 9/11 movie. Like there's nobody that saw these people running through the streets at that time in New York City that wasn't thinking about 9/11. It's like our Godzilla. Like Godzilla, that movie came out like 9 years after the bombs fell in Japan. Like, this is like really quickly after that. I even remember people thinking like too soon. It was, you know what I mean? It was also like people wanted to see it. Garcia saying The Forgotten One with Terry O'Quinn, good horror film.
Dude from Lost, I think, John Locke.
I love John Locke. Grim Prairie Tale, good horror film anthology with James Earl Jones, R.I.P., and Brad Dourif. And Gatlop is the Jumanji of horror. All right, shit.
Some good
Last Shift, and it's a remake. Malum, I've heard of Malum and Last Shift. All right.
Oh, Last Shift, I think I've heard of that. The chick where she's at the precinct or whatever synced, and it's like precinct. Yeah.
I know the cover in my head. All right, so that was your number 6 with Clover, and then mine. I'm surprised this wasn't further up your list, but looking at it, I was like, "Fuck it!" Like this was one that I loved at the time, and I could throw it on anytime. It's super entertaining. Dawn of the Dead, 2004. It's just so good. It's got, like you said, it like the great opener. The thing that I forget is the ending, and I won't say it just in case anyone also forgets it when they rewatch it, but I just forget that it's got like the bleak ending, and I love that. Zombie movies kind of need that. You're not supposed to win in a zombie movie. Like that's kind of the point. Like you're all gonna fucking die, which is what makes them great. But it had, correct me if I'm wrong. No, it's not his first. It's James Gunn's first big film.
Yes.
He'd done some stuff with Trauma, but this is really the movie that like introduced us to that James Gunn style. I'm sorry, Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder. James Gunn wrote it with Zack Snyder.
I'd say, beyond fucking Scooby-Doo, or was it Scooby-Doo 2 that he wrote for?
I think both of them.
Both of them? Okay.
I think so. I might be wrong.
Anything to his name, so I think this was definitely like an early foray for James, like a success for James.
Right. Well, what I was thinking of is just the style of Zack Snyder, though, which I feel became like a part of like cinema. You know what I mean? There's so many things, especially after that aped his style. But it was crazy at the time. You just never seen anything like it. It was so, especially like for a horror movie to have that kind of production value.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's dated very much either. Like think that it would be, but it's really not.
It's like the opening where it's like she's driving in the car, and just I love that opening of that movie, bro. It's like complete chaos. You just see like the neighborhood going to shit. She's driving down the street. The camera starts panning up, and you see like that sun into the gas station, and it's very man,
cinematic as fuck.
Yes.
My man Chill saying, looking at the movies by a decade like this, he's now realizing his decline in taste of horror movies. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but I know you've said before you're more into movies after the 2000s. I feel like there is a drop off, but it starts in the 90s. Like this is kind of a revival outside of like the big ones in the 90s. The Candyman, Silence of the Lambs, Scream, Demon Knight is one for me. And just like the handful that are great. Like it is a major drop off in the 90s, and this is where it comes back, but it's not the same. Horror's like reborn, but it looks different. It's funny to look at my list, or I had a list of like 20 of them, and like they all have like a feel. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They all have like a similar color palette, and like the blue the same way. Yeah, it's interesting. It's weird. It's different, but it's still the same. All right. So where the fuck are we at? That was my number 6. So we're going to your moving into our top 5 here. That was Dawn of the Dead for my 6, and this is your 5.
This might be divisive, but I think this is an underrated movie, and it was an exciting movie. You know, kind of unexpected at the time. I completely get if people don't get this, but I've always really been fond of Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof.
Never, dude. Those are on my list of this, like the biggest weird movie that I've never seen. I've never seen Death Proof or Planet Terror. But carry on, brother.
No, I almost was tempted to put Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez Grindhouse Presents just as one unison, because like Planet Terror is an awesome zombie movie. But just the cast and the idea, like this is like when I first heard about this, I was like, a fucking stunt man. He kills people with his car. Like, what the shit? You know, what are you smoking, Quentin Tarantino? I want some. But you know, this Kurt Russell, fucking, there's not much he's not great in. But you know, he's just super fucking charismatic as this stunt man. Bob, I forget his name. It might be Bob, but. Just the cast of chicks, like we had Mary Elizabeth Winstead, like they were just super badass. And I love the ending, how they just take turns like whooping his ass, and you know the chase scene they have is, I don't know, there's just something really like unique about this movie, especially considering what was going on with horror around that time. I think it was one of them. I'm on it. I've given it was Quentin Tarantino, but I was gonna say it was definitely an auteur film. It wasn't like picky or trying to do something the studios wanted. So it was a unique film in the time of 2000s of horror movies, but definitely Death Proof. I'm a big fan of banter, you know, and Quentin Tarantino was great with that. So
I love that shit. Well, just knowing, like I said, it's weird that I've never seen it. I just ordered it. I ordered the double feature just now because I want to do it soon too, soonish. But knowing that Quentin Tarantino made it, clearly it's going to be like better made than most horror films of all time.
Yeah.
Why am I blanking? What the fuck is dude's name that stars in it? Kurt Russell. Yeah, Russell? And Kurt Russell is your star. Like how could it not?
You can't go. Yeah, that's
Planet Terror is the one that I feel, it would correct me if I'm wrong. Again, not having seen either one of them. Planet Terror is the more like clear cut horror movie of the two.
Yes. Yeah. It's a zombie. Yes, because it's zombie outbreak. People, it's an action zombie movie in a sense, you know.
Right. As many of them are, yeah.
Yeah. But it's cool. You know, I'd say I don't know if there's any more. I'd say there's more, oh shit, like jump moments, or like, oh shit moments in Death Proof. Because you kind of know what you're getting from Planet Terror in the first couple of minutes, you know, like so. But they're both fucking highly enjoyable, both well worth it.
Nice. All right. Well, they're on their way. they'll be here in a couple days. I should have done that a long time ago. Those I've been meaning to. They're never streaming. Maybe they are streaming, but I never see them both streaming.
No, that they hardly ever stream.
All right. So, Death Proof. I love that. Death Proof at your number 5, and my number 5 is Freddy vs. fucking Jason, baby. Dun, dun, dun. Right here. Freddy vs. Jason. This is one, I think when it came out, first of all, when it came out, I was like, no way. Oh my God, they're doing it? I cannot believe that they're actually going to do it. Because there's never been anything like that I could think of that was, I don't know. I wasn't like a King Kong versus Godzilla back in the 70s kind of guy. So as far as
putting that didn't even together.
Right.
That's like, you know, like these are two horror murderers like going at it, like, so you know the body count's gonna be racked up. But this was the first of its kind, bro.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say I struggle between this and Friday the 13th. I went with Friday the 13th at the end of the day because I liked the characters more, but I actually liked a lot of the characters in here too, but I think they had definitely had designed some characters to be asshats. You know, it's horror,
right? But exactly. I mean, first of all, it's Freddy and it's Jason. These, you know what I mean? It's the last time we saw Robert Englund, and probably ever will see Robert Englund as Freddy, which is crazy that it was that long ago. Yeah, 2003. It's the last, and it's like the most. It's a weird movie. Like Freddy narrates the movie. Like there's so many big lines and so many like great visuals from it. But like for me, it's more of it was a really smart way to do it. It's a stupid fucking movie. Like, and it's a silly
Yeah.
movie, and I
Yeah.
realize that. But as far as like the way to get those two together, like having it's Freddy movies have more plot and more storyline to
Mhm.
work with. So it's really a Freddy story. But
Yep.
the way that they use Jason to do all the killing for Freddy, it's like, well, this is
Brilliant.
perfect.
Yeah.
Jason's the one out there doing it, and Freddy's the one like providing all the plot details mainly.
And you
But
know
it's
what?
great,
I would
man. It's
say
great.
like that's a hard thing to do. Like, mind you, these are two horror icons. So when they're finally
Mhm.
duking it out, not only are the it's not nothing crazy, but that fight scenes are entertaining,
Yeah,
and you don't think you would get something like that in a horror movie. So that's
right. The WWF stuff, like at the end. Yeah. And I don't think it would work like it's the biggest we're ever gonna get because like who are
yeah.
the other biggest icons? Like I don't think Michael Myers. It's never gonna work well to do that with him. Like
Mm-mm.
he
He's got
doesn't
to be.
fit in that universe. He does not as malleable as like Freddy and Jason are. And like, but like maybe Chucky versus Jason or Freddy or Leatherface or something like that.
That could be entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely, yeah. I could see Chucky. Chucky could be an interesting one.
Because he talks. It helps to have one that talks
Yeah,
and is funny. Like he can
yeah,
play the Freddy role pretty much.
yep.
He could be the narrator.
Let me
All
let me
right.
tell you a story.
All right. Freddy vs. Jason, my number 5. What do you have at number 4, my brother?
My number four. My number four. I'm delaying because I'm thinking about changing it, but I'm just gonna say it. Uh, I'll go with. I'm gonna go with. This was a hard one, not narrowing down in the last four. I'm gonna go with
Mhm.
Shaun Dead.
Bam.
Um, just a brilliant movie. I remember. Oh, well, I was gonna say I remember watching this movie when it first came out, and well, not when it first came out, but it was the first few months. But it was on DVD, and it took me like 20 minutes to watch the first 5 minutes of the movie because I couldn't understand what they were saying because I was also really high, bro. I was really high.
That's we all were. We all were in 2004. It's all right.
That's talk about iconic. If I feel like this Shaun of the Dead is up there for giving like it participates in the resurgence of zombie at the
Oh,
time.
totally. I think it's bigger than all of them of the year. As
Yeah,
far as popularity, everybody loves Shaun of the Dead. It
because
was
there's just
on TV constantly.
uh seen 28 Days Later sometimes, or not too keen
Mhm.
on it. Totally get that, but Shaun of the Dead, bro, like it's hilarious, and it uses it still feels like a horror film. It's
Mhm.
never like it's a funny movie. Don't get me wrong, but it's never like okay, this is like they had done like a zombie movie. It was kind of riffing off of Zombieland a few years ago called How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse,
Yeah,
and
I've
that
heard of it.
like too jokey. Like it becomes it's a comedy with horror
Even
tropes.
even
That
Zombieland is
a
kind
comedy
of
with
more comedy. It's fucking great. It's one
yeah,
of my
yeah,
favorites of the 2000s that didn't make my list. But when I was looking
same.
at it, first of all, I was like, damn, there's a lot of horror. There's a lot of zombies potentially in my top 10, and a lot of them border on comedy. So it's like, well, we got enough of that. But yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Shaun of the Dead rides that line very strangely, where it's clearly wacky comedy, but it's the same thing I say about Return of the Living Dead. It's not scary, but the stakes are real. Like
Yes,
when the
yes.
deaths happen, you actually feel the emotion behind those moments.
What's that?
But all right, man, that is definitely on my list as well, just a little bit further up as we get close to the top 3. So my number 4 is one that I don't know if it's on your list. I'm not sure if you've seen this one. 28 Days Later. No, I'm just
I
joking.
could, I heard it.
Well, I know one of your favorites. And like I said, I did not watch this back in the day when it came out, or if I did, I forgot about it. I don't know if it necessarily was my broy cup of tea back in 2002 because it's a little
It's not.
too smart.
Yeah, it's definitely not a horror movie you can. It's like I don't want to say it's not an easy watch, but it's not something you can like have on in the background and still kind of
Yeah.
like up what's
Right. You're
going
not going to have a bunch of buddies over drinking beers watching 28 Days Later. You might,
on. Right.
but you're
Yeah,
going to
no,
have more
it's
fun watching Shaun of the Dead or Dawn of the
right.
Dead. Just throw throw one of those on, you silly fuck. But yeah, I mean, the atmosphere of it, the look, it bugs. I wish the resolution was better, but I still like that look that it creates. It's super grimy, and just like the opening bit, the especially back in the day, I loved, and this was the thing that probably helped to launch like the boom of post-apocalyptic movies that we got. But this is one of the coolest ones. They were the way they'll never be able to do that again. The way they
Yeah,
cleared out London like that, like
so
it's
desolate.
so iconic, so badass. And I know it's on your list as well, or I assume it's on your list. So
Maybe.
we could talk more about it if it happens to come up again. So moving into your top three, or here before we get to our top three, let's do our.
So
Oh no, I know what I wanted to do. We'll do the honorable mentions before we get to our top one. I'm going to list off
okay.
right now. These are the movies that I hadn't seen, and most of them are foreign films that you might have seen. Some of them. Wreck, you already mentioned. Wreck, everyone says you got to watch. Foreign like Spanish zombie
Hmm.
film from 2007. The others, I think I did see from
Nicole
2001.
Kidman.
I
Yeah.
didn't rewatch it because we're covering it in a few weeks or like a month. It's Fable's pick for Horror Fest, but that's one that like I mentioned it to Robbie. I'm like, I'm tempted to watch that before I do my top 10 of the 2000s. He's like, you better, bro. You probably better. And I was like, oh, whatever. I didn't, but it's one that it might be on a lot of people's list.
I
Let the
remember.
Right One In is the highest rated movie of that era. I've never seen it. We will be covering that in January for Fang Fest. So stick around for that. Would that have maybe made your list? Had you thought of it
Yeah, I fucking I always get because they came out so close together. Like
with the
it's
remake?
yeah, the remake came out like 2010, maybe
Mhm.
2009. So I always feel like, the turnaround. I was like, oh, they're kind of made the same year. But yeah, that's definitely up there. What is it, 2008? The
I'm not actually sure on that one. I didn't write that down. But I'm dying to see it. And I keep hanging on to it because I know we're doing a big vampire thing in January. So stick around for that one. The Host, I've still never seen. I've seen part of it, never finished it. High
worth it.
Tension is a new French extremity
Yes.
movie that seems right up my alley. Like it was just entertaining, fucking badass French film.
I think the person who did Hills Have Eyes remake was the director.
Aja.
I, yes.
Yeah. Which Hills Have Eyes is another one that I don't know if it's on your list, but it's in my honorable mentions. Fucking badass movie. And then just lastly, quickly, The Orphanage. I hear nothing but great things. Supposed to be super scary. I think it's a Spanish film. The Devil's Backbone by Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo.
I've never seen. Super badass, and or supposed to be super badass. And Juan. I've never seen Juan the Grudge. So I don't know. I don't know if it's another thing we
Yeah.
haven't mentioned. This is the J horror era. So
Yes.
Ring came out before 2000s. The remake is of this era, but it's a
Yeah.
lot of another big chunk of those 2000s is the J horror and the J horror remakes. So did you have any like that are like just stuff that you hadn't seen off the top of your head that
I haven't seen Juwan. I've seen The Grudge through it. Like Last Call, One Missed Call. I haven't seen the OGs of those, just the American remakes.
Mhm.
The Grudge was, oh, I mean, The Ring was cool. I haven't
Yeah.
seen. Don't think I've seen Ringo either. Just the American versions. But Ring was cool. The Grudge was solid. Eggs 2 was solid. And One Missed Call was trash. I think it came out like
I
2006.
believe it. I believe it. We covered a couple weeks ago on PCP the OG, which I didn't love it. I gave it like a 3, but it's worth watching. But all right, let's go ahead and let's dive into our top 3 then, my brother. We're on you. What do you have at
All right.
number 3?
Um, I've championed this movie before. Still sticks with me. I can understand. It's not an idea horror movie, but it's like the ideology behind it or the themes it covers. I really like. But The Mist, Frank Darabont's The Mist.
Man.
Um, there's just something about that movie that sticks with me, like the psychology of like people's tribalism or the whole
Mhm.
group stuff. Just it explores some cool things in the backdrop of a monster sci-fi horror movie. and it's like, the real horror isn't. I mean, the real horror is the monsters, but it's like shit. At one point, you're like, are they people in the characters in the movie question? Are they better off out there taking a chance in the mist, or here with fucking people? Like the real
Right.
horror is the people. Um, just some really cool performances. This is a movie I've seen when it came out, and it's like every watch I always appreciate it. I'm
Mhm.
never entertained with it, so yeah, gotta go with the mist.
My man Chill says, good pick. Forgot about the mist. Battle Royale is brutal. I don't know that one. And then
Like,
I haven't read this. The D. I'm not sure if I should continue. Wasn't the most memorable thing in the movie for me. I'm not ashamed. What are we talking about? 28 days later, maybe?
Cillian Murphy, yeah, when he was
Give
my man's
give
got some balls. I mean, literally and figuratively.
the mist for me, like my favorite bit is the ending. It's got a great vibe and it's so Stephen Kingy. It goes through like all the Stephen King trope characters with the crazy religious person and just the over the top, the people just acting fucking crazy and doing wild things. Like I love Stephen King's bullies are so over the top. Most bullies
Yes.
give you noogies. Stephen King's they
It's
slice your stomach with knives. But yeah, I love the ending. That's the one that's like, oh, that's the first thing I think about when I think about that movie. Is like, what a gut punch. What a brutal fucking
should
ending.
have on.
But all right. So your number 3 is The Mist, and my number 3 is, I think you already mentioned it. Where are we at? Whoa, where's my list? Oh, Shaun of the Dead, man. If we were to put up like the one that I've watched most,
Respect.
it's probably got to be Shaun of the Dead. This could easily have been number 1. Like this is like I don't
Yeah.
know. I love this movie. It's like I don't know. There's something
Yeah.
like it's got all the heart in the world and all the other things we said. It's so funny and it's like different. That kind of
Yes.
humor, that back and forth that they have. What's his name? Ah, whatever. Who gives a shit? But the
Sean
Sean
something.
Penn or not Sean Penn, Sean Penn and Brad Pitt. What is his name?
Nick Frost and Sean Simonberg or Simon.
Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg is the main guy's name. Their chemistry is just amazing. It's one of the best like friendships depicted on screen, probably of all time. Like
Yes.
you just love those characters. It's so fucking witty and funny. But yeah, it's
Bro,
endlessly rewatchable.
that bro, like there's so much brilliance in this movie. That's why I should have been higher on my list, but I was just like, I gotta try to keep it horror. It is a horror movie. God damn it, I might have to rewatch it. But I love the bit that establishes him with him going to work, hanging out
Me
and
too.
shit, and
It's the
then the
best.
next day, they repeat the same bits but under different circumstances, and just like them, it's such subtle things that they nail. That is a great movie. That's definitely. I wouldn't have been mad had that been your number one or anyone's
Right.
number
Right, man. I mean, again, like we keep saying this, but like when I think 2000s, that's the other movie I think of like instantly.
one.
Oh,
Yes.
Shaun of the Dead. I've it's crazy how many times I've watched that movie. Another one that was just on TV like all the time back in the day, or I feel like it was at least. All right, so what do you have, my brother? I'm kind of curious because what's interesting is I don't think either of my top 2 will be on neither of them are probably in your top 2 or on your list. So it should be interesting. I don't know what you're gonna have. I can guess one of them, but carry on. I'm very curious.
My top, the one I might know, but this is the second one that might throw you through a loop. But it is one I. It's not like it's forgotten about, but I feel like it's underappreciated. And the idea of it was really cool. But 30 Days of Night with
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, yeah, nice, dude.
I actually really like that whole isolated setting and just going into survival mode. Josh Hartnett is a gem. I'm glad he's seen
Mhm.
such a response. But this was like one of the last things he did before he kind of like he didn't fall into obscurity, but he stopped being so consistent. Um, and he nails down the character. I think his name was like Eben. So this dude who kind of he's keeping the community together with subtle things like
Mhm.
I always love the line where he's like gives the dude a ticket and his partner's like, you didn't have to give him a ticket. He's like, yeah, I know, but such and such lives up there by himself. He only comes down for supplies once a month, I can get a little loan. Just like to give him some shit so he knows he's still part of the community, like
Yeah, yeah.
it, things that made it seem really cool when all this shit went down. Fucking the vampires, I know they were probably
Yeah.
it's based off the comic Ben Smith's drawing of them. Who Steve Niles, I know he was a writer, but I just love the look of them, bro. Like the way their teeth are super fucking sharp, and it just the scene where they're like they have the girl screaming for help and they're like using her as bait, and then they just
Right.
fine moments,
Do they
bro.
like speak like some kind of like Eastern European language or something too?
Yep.
It's like something about that, and they're like kind of cool, slick look, but different. It's not. I don't know.
Yep.
There's like a matrixy feel to it, but not.
Yeah.
It's like a Blade Matrix feel, but with an Eastern
They
European.
definitely had the long trench coat, the black.
Yeah. And what's cool also is just like that's first thing you said is that setting. It's like that's a big part of horror movies. Is like how do we isolate our characters? It's like you need that in so many ways, like aliens or fucking you're at Camp
Like there's
Crystal
no
Lake
help.
or something like that. Yeah, like isolation is cool. And then plus it gives it that different look. It's a very like when I think that movie, I think white, black, and red. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Contrast.
I like to just have like a couple colors that pop in your mind. But yeah, my issue with that is I felt like last time I watched it, it was a little long. But that was the only thing I watched. I remember watching it during the day, but I remember thinking like, yeah, they could shorten this bitch up a little bit.
I
But
can see that.
I want to rewatch it. That'll be a fun one for us to cover. Shit, maybe
Okay.
that'll be a Fangfest thing. All right. Yeah, that's awesome. I wasn't expecting that one on your list. Have you read the comic, by the way?
I read the first series, first issue of the second series, and then they had like a spinoff called like 30 Days of the Night, Eben and Stella. But I kind of fell off after that. I know they've done different iterations.
All right. All right. So again, your number 2, 30 Days of Night. My number 2. I'll just stand up for this one.
Respect it.
American Psycho. Which is it a horror movie? I don't know. I think I don't even know if my number 1's a horror movie. I was just talking about this with my buddy. Yeah, I mean it is. You've got the bits where he's chopping people up, chasing people down the hallway with a fucking chainsaw. I couldn't think of the word for that. But dude, like thinking of horror icons, like Patrick Bateman, he's one of the most memorable. It's one of my favorite performances ever. Like Christian Bale, one of the best actors to ever be the lead in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then you pair that with Willem Dafoe getting his moments in there, the narration, everything about it. Like the tone to me is just fucking crazy. Like, I don't know, it's so funny, but it's also like it's really bleak and it's a dark ass movie. It's unique, man. There's nothing like that movie. Jared Leto.
Very logical. Yeah.
What's the girl's name? What's his girlfriend's name? I always forget her goddamn name. Yeah, it don't matter. It'll come to me.
Was it? No, it wasn't Aunt May from the Spider-Man movies, was it?
No. It's I always want to say Brittany Murphy, but it's not her. It's the girl that she reminds me of from the time. I'm looking it up. Fuck it. What's her name? Reese Witherspoon. There it is. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. It's just it's a great movie. I could watch it a billion times. And plus, I love that it's like the ambiguity of it, where I think it's almost unanswerable. So it could go a bunch of different ways, whether he's crazy, certain events of it. A lot of things that like I didn't really even fully understand about the movie until we covered it for DHS. And I was like, oh, okay. Like kind of looking into it more.
I almost appreciate the ambiguity more, like the kind of, because it's almost like more terrifying if it was all in his head and it's like there's an unhinged person who's just on the verge of fucking snapping, just kind of walking out there, just
right.
So
feeding cats to ATMs and shit.
But no, yeah, I've given that movie shit about being in a horror movie in the past, but I was like, you know what? It was mostly with me putting signs on this list. I was like, if I'm gonna put signs on here, bro, I gotta say, because you could debate whether Signs is it's obviously very suspenseful and thrillerish, but I think it warrants enough for horror, and I think American Psycho is up there with it. It's a psychological kind of horror.
It's weird when you have your main character be the person producing the horror, because then it's like you're not necessarily made to feel the fear, so it's weird, but it's still like, what the fuck else do you call it? It's not, what I mean? It has to be. You got to put it somewhere. But man,
it's horror.
Chill Out Man saying all good movies gas something memorable about them. Have something memorable about them. I'm assuming with me until this day, I still try to do those stretches Bates does every morning.
Batman.
I try to just peel the skin off my face every day. I don't even use the mask. I'm just trying to peel it every day. What up, Stu, you sexy son of a slut? So vulgar. It's so vulgar. What up, Michael Coulter says Sal Battle Royale was 1,000 times more better than the Hunger Games. I agree. I don't know that movie, but it's probably more better than the Hunger Games. All right, so before we go into our number ones, let's bust out some honorable mentions, my brother. We can, and you guys in the chat too, man. Just throw them out there. Anything that we haven't mentioned that you want to mention, just throw it out there. Just movies that are cool. What do you got?
I'm just gonna ramble a little bit. Creep, Eden Lake, 1408. I didn't make my list there. Northern Hills Have Eyes, but certainly honorable Rex. My list fluctuates because they were on my list previously.
Right.
But
yeah.
There's some good movies that are out there. Trick or Treat, Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell was on my list for a while. Then I was like, I kicked it off. Martyrs was on my list. That's the one I took off right before we got rolling. And I was like, yeah, it was super entertaining.
We got Black Christmas. You know what? Actually, I don't think that's that bad of a movie. The one with like Lacey
2006. Yeah.
2006. Yeah. Oh, The Cell. Forgot about that
with J-Lo.
Fuck, that's definitely an honorable wreck. 28 weeks later, just because it's connected to 28 days.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that one. That's 2000s. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, and well, I was gonna say Pandorum, but that's more of like a sci-fi monster. I'll leave Pandorum off, but it's cool sci-fi horror movie. With it's got like
the first one that I kicked out, it was gonna be my number 10. I'm like, I better not put it on there. It's not horror at all, but it is. It's Scary Movie. Movie from fucking 2000, man. I threw that movie on. I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years, and I watched it a couple years ago and just belly laughed the whole time. I don't care. Anyone does it. Jeepers Creepers, Sal saying, which that's my wife's like favorite horror movie. She's your age. And to her, like that's like her favorite from that era. I think I was a little bit too old for it at the time. I was like,
that almost my list. Almost, but because of the controversy with the director, and it's hard. You know, you got to separate art from the artist sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I just figured that would make a better honorable rec than being on the list. But that movie, I just turned 13 when that came out. And that was one of the last few movies where it kind of like gave me it didn't terrify me, but I was like, oh shit, this motherfucker can pick up on fear. You know, I better not, better not walking by myself because I'll be a little afraid and he's gonna pick up on it.
I love that. But that's funny. Constantine, Sal saying the Blade movies. I at the last second, I'm like, oh shit, maybe those would be on Steph's list. I mean, those are obviously great movies. I don't really think of them as horror, obviously. A little more action, but they're vampire movies, so they're kind of horror. I had like my number one, the one that I wanted to put on the list, but I just didn't for whatever reason, because I have so much comedy already, is Slither. This one is directed by James Gunn. This movie is so fucking fun. Just an ode to horror, great performances, just a crazy alien horror comedy like Splatterfest, kind of Gorefest thing. We mentioned Drag Me to Hell.
Underrated.
House of 1,000 Corpses, probably a movie that I've seen more than most of the movies on this list, but I figured we had enough Rob Zombie, especially with where I will be going. Hills Have Eyes, Zombieland, fucking Frailty with Bill Paxton. That's one that like I didn't see until recently, and it's like I don't know. That's like as far as just being like a good movie, that's a great movie. That's better than probably some movies on my list. Fucking Saw. So I can't believe Saw is not on either of our lists. It's such a good movie, but
the first
there's like it's not as fun as like a lot of the other movies that are on my list. Like Saw is just like it's a rougher, nastier watch. Plus the blonde guy from Princess Bride, I can't stand that guy in that movie. Like I think like it's like some of the worst acting I've ever seen. Sal saying Donnie Darko, I considered that. What Lies Beneath, Sal says. I
That's a
love
good
that
one.
back in the day. That's from Zemeckis. I always
Zemeckis, yeah.
yeah, I forget. I gotta
Gordon,
rewatch that.
Michelle Pfeiffer on fire. You know, not literally, but she's babe. But that's
Right.
yeah, they have that on DVD.
Chill out, man. Feast, Teeth, Wishmaster, Planet Terror, Death Proofs, Jeepers, McCreepers Sauce, Saw, Slither, and Splinter. The Strangers, my wife fucking, she loves that. To her, that's like the scariest movie of all time, but I just get bored in the third act. And then as
Yeah,
far as a deep cut, we've reviewed it on DHS, but May 2002, baby, that one sticks with me.
May
I love May. It's on I think it's on Shutter. Fucking Pan's Labyrinth,
Pan's
Jennifer's Body,
Labyrinth.
Saw
Yes,
X, and the last one I'll say, not a
Jennifer's
horror
Body.
movie, kind of a horror movie, and maybe the best film on the list is Requiem for a Dream. As far as like the performance by the mom in that,
That's
one of the dopest performances ever. Not a horror movie, but it has horror scenes in it, and
it
it's
makes you feel
like,
uneasy, bro.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind
I
of my
haven't.
thing. It's a genre of something. I don't know. It kind of fits in the discussion. Like I would cover it, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting it on my top 10 list for
It's up
horror.
there with like SCL Punk and like Train Spotting and shit like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Those, well, it's not SCL Punk, but definitely Train Spotting. But it's more. It's definitely
Trainspotting
more.
is a great call. Yeah,
Yeah, that the last fucking few minutes of Requiem for a Dream, bro. Like just that montage of all their lives going to shit. It's just
hmm
you feel like you need to take a shower after you watch that
totally.
movie.
The
But yeah,
fridge coming up the mom and all that, like that was the horror bits, the stuff with the mom.
yes, yeah.
But you're right, it's just like using cinema to make you feel uneasy, which is a big part of what horror is.
Mm-hmm.
Haunting of Connecticut, is that the 2000s? Yeah, I guess
Why
it
does that
probably
sound
is.
familiar?
My man Michael Coulter says House 1000 Corpses is or House of 1000 Corpses, I assume,
Yeah,
is hilarious. Siddick Haig did a wonderful job as Captain Spaulding. I agree, man. I think those are the most iconic character. Well, once we get through this, we'll kind of list it off like who are the biggest icons of that era. But let's
2000s.
continue with Missing Links, top horror movie of the 2000s. What do you got, brother?
I think we all saw this coming.
Yeah.
Not only one of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite movies of all time. 28 Days Later, it revolutionized the zombie genre. Um, it's Danny Boyle. He's a prestigious filmmaker. So for him to take on a project like this, you're not going to see that happen too often. Uh,
Mhm.
Killian Murphy. Is it Killian or Cillian? Cillian?
I think it's
Cillian?
Killian.
Killian. Killian Murphy. I forget the actress's name, but Selena. She was fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic, not Dominic. That's his Brendan Gleeson. Fucking amazing. Those are my favorites. Those
Those are
three.
my favorite moments too. Like when he gets
Yes.
that drop in the eye, it's one of the
And
best. Like, oh shit, one of our buddies turned and we got to kill him moments. It hits all the things that you're supposed to hit in a zombie movie, but it does it
yep.
different and better in
Yep.
a lot of ways.
Just like you were mentioning earlier, bro. Like the shots, the desolate shots of like, and this was not CGI. So of course that we've
Mhm.
got the whole uncanny valley thing. Like we can perceive subtle things with our eye, even when the backgrounds they look good, but you subtly tell they're not
Mhm.
or it's been CG emulated. And just like the desolate shots they got, like you said, they will probably never be able to achieve again. Like some of the shots they pull off were fucking masterful in the
Right,
time they needed to pull these off. Because these are some of the busiest parts of London that are
right.
hardly ever desolate. They managed to do it. Just the imagery, just the spin on, and I hadn't seen it before, but I feel like these were the first running zombies or the zombies that you're like, oh fuck, like let's get a
Yeah.
move on.
I would say
Anxiety.
Return of the Living Dead, but it was different. This was more
Yeah,
earnest of a movie,
yeah.
more of a horror movie.
They had a
Yeah.
little hustle in Return of the Little Living Dead, but here they're fucking sprinting,
Yeah.
like yeah, what the fuck. But yeah, just it's I this was I remember seeing not it caught me off guard because I remember wanting to see it in theaters, saw it with my friends, and I was like the only person who enjoyed it at the time. But I was like hooked. I was glued to the screen, like, yo, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, and I was a horror snob back then, so it was very far and few that certain horror movies kind
Mhm.
of resonated with me or I actually deemed good. So yeah, 28 Days Later, it's a classic, a modern classic.
Hell yeah, man. I completely agree. As far as like looking at my list, I think it's the best movie on my list. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's just, if I had grown up with it the way that you did or watched it back in the day, it would probably be my number one too. I just don't have any nostalgia for it because to me
right.
it's almost a new fucking movie. But yeah, just the shots, man. The shots are so goddamn good. And a lot of people don't compliment jump scares much, but the jump scares that you do get in this movie are fucking great. Like that moment with the
Especially at the
one zombie at the window with the crazy
yeah,
eyes when he's there, and the other moment when earlier on, when remember he's traveling with it's just the chick and the guy, and they're at his parents' house, and somebody jumps through the window, and then they end up having to kill the one guy. That's a great jump scare, like super well executed, fire movie. It's got the shaky camera and all that crazy stuff, but it
works.
works in that one. It
Yeah,
works along with the really good, well good composition in the other still shots. But all right, moving into my number one, another one. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel fucking great about having this movie at number one at all. I don't even know if it's a good movie, but I've watched The Devil's Rejects so many times, man.
yo, I'm glad. Yeah, respect.
So many times. And then another thing, just like I think these are the best characters from the 2000s. For me, like the most iconic characters, Captain Spaulding,
Definitely.
Otis, and whatever the hell her name is, Sherry Moon. I think it's
Sherry Bear.
Baby Doll. Like we've said it a bunch of times. When I think 2000s horror, it's this. It's Shaun of the Dead, it's Hostel, but House of a Thousand Corpses, I loved. I thought I loved it when it came out. It's more annoying to watch now. It's more dated with the shitty editing and all the MTV-ness of it. But he got way better, Rob Zombie did, between
Devil's
then and
Rejects.
this film. And the other
Absolutely.
thing is just like having the most to do that, to take the most vile characters, some of the most vile characters ever in a popular movie are the Firefly family from House of a Thousand Corpses, and to make them likable is a crazy thing to try to do and to pull off. I say it all the time. The moment the tutti fucking fruity, you are bought into this family at that moment, or I am. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, they're fucking so cute eating ice cream together.
And
But
like to reinforce your point, like these are vile people, bro. But by the end of this movie, like you want them to pull through on the other end of this,
right,
which is a crazy feat. But
right.
I'm glad you listed that one. I was gonna say that as my when we were doing honorable Rex, I was completely forgot about fucking House of a
Mhm.
Thousand Corpses and Devil's
Right, right.
Rejects. Yo, Devil's Rejects fucked me up when I first saw that movie. It was so I don't know, like you said, I think it's more intense than House of a Thousand Corpses as
Right.
well. Better movie too. But like yeah, like Rob Zombie had just leveled up in between those 3 years. Or was it 2002 was House of a Thousand or
Maybe
2001?
2003. But
Okay.
he made it like a couple years before it came out.
Okay.
So it had been a while. Dude, like the amount of when the bit in the hotel when like they take the family into the hotel and like the one guy comes knocking at the door, they just let him in and execute him in front of everyone. That's like to me, that's insane. What chill? What are you saying? He's saying, I freaking hate that movie. I assume you're talking about Devil's Rejects. Oh, he's also mentioning House of Wax, another fun one from the 2000s. But a lot of people hate that movie.
House of
But
Wax?
no. Devil's Rejects. It was big. I felt like it was huge at the time. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people love the shit out of it too. But it does get like a lot of hate. And I was trying to think, like, this isn't like, is it a horror movie? It totally is
Yeah.
because of the atmosphere and the grunge of it. But it's the same thing where you're like not, I don't know, you're on the side of the killers in that moment in that hotel scene. You're somehow like aligned with the killers, but you're still afraid for the hotel, for that family
That yeah.
band. Like
Yeah.
you don't know, like he quickly makes you like them so much. And that's like not easy to pull off. It's only a chunk of
No.
the movie, but it's a crazy movie.
And I always kind of dug it that motel setting because it reminded me of Dust from Dusk Till Dawn. You know, in high school I was like, yeah, I remember Dusk Till Dawn. That's kind of cool. Motel
Yeah,
setting
yeah.
there. So yeah, that was
Exactly. It does remind me of that. I think Rob Zombie took a lot from Tarantino for sure. with the banter with his characters. And you're right, Dusk Till Dawn in that movie, there is a big overlap right there, and stylistically.
Sid Haig, bro.
R.I.P. Sid Haig, Captain Spaulding. My brother was at, I've told this story before, he was at Culture Legs. This is Devil's Rejects is fucking awesome. I added the fucking, he says I've seen it a trillion times. Times on Tubi. Shit, this is like a $3 2-pack, nice. Man. Just pick that bad boy up. Just get it.
Nice.
My brother was at somewhere. He was either at an airport or he was somewhere. And he was at a urinal and he's taking a piss and he looks over and Captain Spaulding, Sig Haig, is sitting there pissing next to him, and he just goes, "You fucking Captain Spaulding?" And he goes, "Fucking A right, brother." He said it was like the perfect answer. He said, "Fucking A right, brother." Culture's got a fun fact. He says his little fun fact: Sid Haig stars in another
Tomahawk
movie that I love
so
called
good,
Bone Tomahawk. Yeah. We were just talking about that not long ago. He shows up in that movie and weirds me out. I was like, whoa, because I'm not used to seeing him in other things. Hatchet.
Him and David Arquette.
Yeah, when he shows up in Hatchet, that throws me off too. He's in one of the.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, everybody's in that movie. They've got Tony Todd and.
What was the last? Was he in 3 or 4 of Hatchet? Because
I can't remember. It might have been 2. I don't know. He already. I was about to say he didn't look great, but I think I'm wrong about that. He really didn't look great. That's the thing, man. These two are really good. Like House of a Thousand Corpses has its issue, but solid movie. Goes with this one. And then, From Hell, the worst. I just hated it. Such a dog shit movie. Like everything after Halloween 2007, I haven't really liked from Rob Zombie. Like I'm not a Rob Zombie fan necessarily. Yeah. Even the movies that I do like, I have issues with them too. It's just, I don't know. Dude, I was a bro of that era, it turns out. You know what I mean? You look back at it, you're like, oh, I guess I was part of that fucking bro era.
I mean, there's something to be said about that. Sometimes directors kind of like when they first come out, they've got that fire to them. And it's like after they've made it, they kind of get complacent. Like that happened to M. Night Shyamalan, like his first couple movies. Fucking bangers, bro, classic bangers. And that's almost the same situation with Rob Zombie. Like you know, they might not be for everybody, but you can't deny that there's some quality here, as opposed to, you know, Shyamalan and Rob Zombie's latter years, where they're kind of like, you know, their movies aren't what they used to be. Some of them are shit. But
right. Even like Eli Roth, like Thanksgiving, a lot of people loved that, but it's so much more tame.
Yes,
he doesn't like they lose the. I've said this all the time about musicians too. Like after that second album, like there's not that many that can really keep it going. There's a lot that do, but the numbers are against you because there's so much. A lot of times your first album or your first movie, you've been thinking about that shit for 20 years or whatever. You know, you've really been like honing that for a long ass time. But all right, man. Well, hell yeah. Let's go ahead and do a quick recap, man. Go ahead and do you have your list sitting in front of you just to run through? If not, I do.
Number 10. Am I just going down the list?
Yeah, just list them off.
All right. Number 10, Friday the 13th. Number 9, Dawn of the Dead. Number 8, Cabin Fever. Number 7, Signs. Number 6, Cloverfield. Number 5, we have Death Proof. Number 4, Shaun of the Dead. Number 3, The Mist. Number 2, 30 Days of Night, and numero uno, 28 Days Later.
So I'm trying to look at the overlap that we had. We both had 28 Days Later, both had Shaun of the Dead, and we both had Dawn of the Dead. That's it. I think me and Fable only overlapped 4 times. I thought maybe we would overlap more because there's less good movies in this era. There's still some great ones as we've talked about, but there's not like the 80s was crazy. Where your number 15 is like one of the biggest movies of all time. It was insane. But just to recap my list, it is Pontypool from 2009, the Halloween remake, The Descent, Hostel 2, Dawn of the Dead 2004, Freddy vs. Jason, 28 Days Later, Shaun of the Dead, American Psycho, and The Devil's Motherfucking Rejects. I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work. I loved that. When I was like back in the day, I just thought that was like the craziest thing you could say to someone. I'm the devil. I'm here to do the devil's work, and I'm gonna whack you with a big fucking stick. It was so brutal. So brutal. But all right, man, hell yeah. Just I mentioned it earlier. Like who are the biggest icons from that era? We've got Jigsaw, we've got the
Definitely.
Firefly family from the Rob Zombie trilogy. We have Samara from the Ring remake. We got
Oh, dude, yeah.
Sam from Trick or Treat, and Michael Myers from
Right.
2007. As far as like the person that sold the most gear, I guarantee it's Michael Myers
Okay.
2007.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? He's really a 70s or 80s character.
I
Those are
feel you
just some I
named.
wrote down off the top of my head. Like, who else did we really get like new from that era? Anyone you're thinking of?
I no. I feel like that. I feel like those were like um the icons. If I narrow down to Captain Spaulding in particular out of the Firefly family,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean, for sure. I think a lot of people don't know Otis or Baby Doll's names. You're right. It's Captain Spaulding out of that group. That's the
he's got the look. He's
yeah,
just very obviously Sam the from Trick or Treat with the pumpkin head. Yeah, I feel like you named them though. Ring, those were like the icons of the
yeah.
2000s. Like,
Patrick Bateman is another one that I
yeah,
mentioned
yes.
earlier. Yeah, hell
And
yeah, man.
stuff, but like, even that Valentine movie with like Cupid, that shit didn't really, it was kind of cool
Right,
with his mask, but that wasn't
right.
iconic. It was
Well,
just
I mean,
Michael.
I'm trying to think because like we think of like, oh, the 80s is the era where we got all the icons, but it's like, I mean, maybe I could list off a lot more, but you get Freddy, Jason, Michael, and Chucky, but there's a million that didn't work. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, I wonder
yeah,
how many, like, if we were to do that with the 80s, how many more is there? Like, there's, they tried it like a bunch of times, like with the Prowler and My Bloody Valentine or House, these things where they had these, like, the Jason, Michael, Freddy type characters that were just kind of one and done or just didn't catch on. I don't know. I think they got so much bigger. Like, they're like some of the biggest names in pop culture compared to like
yeah.
Patrick Bateman or Captain Spaulding. Like, those are big, but they're not in the, that
They're not.
other stratosphere that those big ones are.
Yeah, we'll see in the next 10, 15 years if we get any sequels, remakes, or anything like that.
Right.
And
The era of the icon is kind of they're not as focused on that for I mean Art the Clown's the newest one that we have, but even that's not like not everybody knows who the fuck that is.
right,
You know what I mean? If you're
right.
in horror, you definitely know who it is. And I think even like my nieces and stuff, they do know who he is now that I think about it. But I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't really have the perspective to be able. I
Of
don't
it.
know like if he's not. I don't know. Actually, I just don't fucking know. I feel like he's pretty big, but those movies aren't big. Neither of those movies got like mainstream. He kind of is, but not the movies.
Spalding.
No, I'm sorry. Terrifier 1 and 2.
Oh,
Like
the Smiley. The yeah.
yeah,
What
as
that's a
far as
nice
like
name.
the most recent Art the Clown.
Arthur Comic. Yeah, why am I thinking? Arthur. Yeah. And it's crazy. I feel like it would like because I know the first one came out like what 2016 around there, somewhere around there. But I feel like it was definitely the second one where it's like people he got a hold of like the zeitgeist. Now
Totally.
people are aware of him.
Right.
But no,
That's
he's
what it
definitely got a
takes is
cool.
two. Yeah, you need to make a couple before you're big. And he's not going anywhere. That next one's
Yeah.
coming out. But the movies are so much more extreme that way less people are watching them. They're never going to play Terrifier on USA. Not that I'm watching fucking USA, but I did probably watch these movies on USA or definitely the 80s movies when I was a kid. Like it's a different era to sound like an old man one more time before we get out of here. But I didn't put together the thumbnails, but what do I have going on? What do we have going on? This Thursday, we're doing Mortuary Collection, streaming on
Oh
Shutter.
no,
Fun little horror anthology. I love doing horror anthologies. I know it's going to be a fun show. It's not
I've been
going
looking
to,
forward to.
not going to be complicated. I think there's like 5 stories with the wraparound story. So guarantee
Okay.
you that will be a fun ass episode on the regular show Thursday night at 8 Central Time. You got anything else you got going on you want to talk about?
No, see you Thursday. I'm looking forward to this one. I've been putting this is a movie I wanted to watch ahead of time, but I was like, let me save my excitement for it. So
Right.
now it's coming up. I'm glad
Hell
to
yeah,
be
man.
watching.
Hell yeah. I can't wait for it. Like I said before, man, we covered this on DHS a couple years ago, and I was like, we all did that. Don't do that one. Then I went and looked at it. I'm like, oh fuck, none of you guys did. It was Dylan, Scarpad, Robbie, and I. So it's like we didn't have Fable, no Stu, no you. So, and none of you guys have seen it. Stu and Fable haven't seen it either. So go check it out there, folks. And again, appreciate you. Chill saying Verno had to make it clear he did not watch USA. I didn't. I swear. I've never said USA up all night in my life. I would never do that. But all right, you guys are the best, and we will see you Thursday for Mortuary Collection.